Nanna began her career in a completely different path, and a decade ago, she made a major shift, moving away from a corporate career in business development into the world of emotional health, relationships, and intercultural connection. In many ways, that transition says a lot about who she is, because she understands something that many internationals eventually discover. Moving between cultures is not only a practical experience, it's an emotional one too. After more than 2 decades of international life, including 4 expatriate assignments, she has experienced firsthand what it means to adapt, belong, communicate, and sometimes lose parts of yourself in the process. Today, she works as an emotionally focused couples therapist, supporting internationals, couples leaders, and organizations as they navigate the complexity of intercultural life. We met some years ago, and she helped me create a new language for my new life. What I find especially interesting about her work is that she helps people reframe cultural differences, not as barriers, but as invitations to deeper understanding, emotional awareness, and connection. Because so often what looks like miscommunication on the surface is actually a deeper thing. It can be about identity, expectations, belonging, and the way we experience safety with others. Through therapy, workshops, and leadership training, Nanna helps people build stronger emotional and intercultural resilience, both personally and professionally. And today, we are exploring what happens when we begin to see culture, relationships, and even ourselves through a different lens. Welcome, Nanna.
Thank you, Daniela. Wow. What a beautiful introduction.
I'm
all moved.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
I made my homework.
Yeah.
But also I've experienced what you do from the side of a client.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting for me. And I told you this before, that when I approached you and I said, hey, I need to, I'm not coping. This is becoming too much, and I didn't expect it because I had lived abroad before.
Yeah.
And you said, okay, yes, I can help you, but since your situation is different because you're in a couple, then we need to view it from the side of the couple. And that for me was mind-blowing because I had never thought about it before. Like I had to work through things in a different way. And so I'm very curious about how does it look from your side when couples either migrate or have these cultural challenges that you have when you marry someone that is not from your same culture.
Yeah.
And how difficult or different it is for people to then see it through a lens of a couple and not only through a personal lens of this is being challenging for me.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting what you mentioned, because I haven't thought about the first time we met. You came on your own, like you said, and in a way what we did was a little bit of a reframe, right? We reframed how you could approach the sort of the problem or the challenge of trying to adapt to Danish culture as a Mexican woman. And I think I quite early in the session suggested that you invited in your partner.
Yeah.
Because what I see is often that people, whether you've moved internationally or just are where you grew up, but this idea that we have to deal with our struggles or problems on our own individually, but we're part of a bigger system, right? And so to your question around sort of if what happens if you marry someone from a different culture, or what couples can experience when they transition internationally, I think is important to frame in as a systemic thing, as something that happens relationally, and not just as one person's struggle. So I think a lot of the work that I do today, after having moved myself into a different, pivoted my own career and reframe my own sort of career or way of thinking of what I could do in life, is really to try to sort of explore and also then reframe what is actually the problem. Is it Is it what people think? But it's obviously it's a process. It's also something that takes time to figure out what is it actually that's causing difficulties, whether it's in actual therapy, couples therapy, or whether it's in working with a team or in leadership. Obviously, it's kind of different ways we approach it, but it's ultimately the same human need of feeling a sense of belonging, of feeling understood and heard and seen, that takes place, and whether or not we address that as an individual assignment or challenge, or whether we look at it as in a bigger frame, in a way, right?
Picture,
in a bigger picture of that, we're relational human creatures in a way.
We're never alone, right? And whatever happens to us it has an impact on everybody around, and whatever they are doing, it has an impact on us. So it makes completely sense. For me, it was a new thing, because I think many times, and maybe it's a culture now that is very individualistic, and it's like you're always working on yourself to get somewhere where you're perfect, where you will never be there, because life is a work in progress. But also, it's never you by yourself. You're in a partnership or with a business partner, or
and it's interesting. Does it answer the question? Or,
But so you see it a lot. People come expecting to work alone with things, and then it results that it's never them alone. It's always about the
I think I experienced that, and then I experienced maybe the focus on maybe that it's the culture. Sometimes it is the cultural clash when we talk about internationals, for instance, coming to Denmark or moving around in different cultures and working cross-culturally. But it's never just culture; it's also personalities, right? And what's what, and it's relational. And so obviously there are some cultural codes and ways of doing things that we can, that can cause friction or misunderstandings. But then how we react to that and how we then deal with those misunderstandings are also linked to how we navigate the world as a human being. And it's never only just culture.
No.
And that's quite interesting. And especially doing couples work so much that I do. I mean, working with relations, it's often that once we peel off the layers, it's more or less always the same core need or core problem: feeling connected, feeling seen and heard and understood. And then of course the cultural expressions are so different.
You're not getting what you expect or what you're used to or whatever.
So a lot of that is, I think, reframing how people see their problems and see their struggles or their challenges.
Makes sense. And for you, in all your, if you want to share a little bit of your process, how do you arrive to this need to work with it? Because I guess I know, but I want you to say it.
You know, but you want the audience to hear it too.
Everybody else to hear it too. But how do you come to see this is so important? We can work with it based on your own experience.
How long do we have? I'll try to see if I can frame that as a short introduction. It's hard to say when this interest for relations started. As you said in the introduction, education-wise, I come from business. But prior to starting at the Copenhagen Business School, I had done quite a lot of different work. That at that time, it was like, when are you going to start studying? That was my parents saying that. But I think today I can see that the importance of the years that I had between graduating high school and starting a formal education. I had 6 years, 6 gap years, we call it, right? But they weren't gap years. They were years where I explored, tried to figure out where my sort of interests were. And and so I think when I'm 53 now, and I'm different than when I was 40 or 20 or And I think I can look back at my life so far and see a lot of reframing.
Okay.
A lot of times of trying to sort of reinvent or add new perspectives to how I live my life and what I do.
Okay.
And that kind of was, I would say, really sort of ignited with my expat experience.
Okay.
Going back to 2009, actually. And I have had a couple of international experience before that, but the 2009 experience sort of initiated this curiosity around what international transitions do to couples and families.
Okay.
Because I was in a relationship then, 3 kids. I was an accompanying spouse. I experienced the culture shock quite differently than the other international transitions because it was our whole family of 5 that had different experiences. It put a lot of pressure on our relationship, I felt a lot of pressure on me. I felt a lot of identity loss. I felt a lot of comparing myself to colleagues or fellow sort of old friends and how they...
Like their life keeps going.
Yeah,
and
their trajectory in life and
yeah.
career. And I was suddenly an accompanying spouse. And I was so frustrated.
Yeah.
I wasn't happy. And looking back, I was like, I'm now thinking, I should have been able to tell myself to enjoy it because it was also a special time.
Yeah.
I had small kids and all of that. But that led me to sort of investigate, where could we get some help? Why was this difficult?
Yeah.
And I think that's where Expat Hero kind of started, but I didn't know that at the time. And then I then started working for a Danish company within sales and business development. Again, reframing what I thought I was supposed to do, but I kind of grabbed that opportunity. Again, sort of then leading me to say, okay, this is okay, this is fun, and I really enjoyed that. And then another kind of turning point was moving back, repatriating from Switzerland, where we were, to Denmark in 2014. So this is a long time ago.
Yeah.
And that is actually where this started. Really started.
Okay.
Because the reverse culture shock and the experience and that whole sense of where do we belong and should we stay, should we go, those years of being in that kind of really made me want to understand this transition process better from a psychological perspective and from a relational perspective. Why is it sort of taking such a toll on families and relationships to have these international transitions and intercultural adaptation processes, and how do we stay true to who we are and still sort of, grow and develop our identity? And again, how do we see this? What is this problem doing? And it's not always a problem. It's also full of excitement and all of that. But a lot of people minimize the impact it has on our psychology to transition and move and uproot.
Okay. Yeah. Was it first for yourself, and then you thought, okay, I can do it as a career?
Absolutely.
Or always.
Totally. Absolutely.
For you,
totally.
personal.
First steps were to figure out, how can I navigate this? How can I support my children? How can I strengthen my relationship and work with that?
Yeah.
And then I think what I realized over the years was like, I was so consumed by this theme. I was so curious. I kept reading, I kept studying. I took a 4-year training. I took another specialization training. I did emotionally focused therapy training, and I kind of, so it was a slow development. I had a few years returning to Denmark where I thought I should stay in business.
Yeah.
I applied for a lot of jobs in business, actually. Not a lot of people know this, but I had I can't remember how many rejections.
Yeah. It's hard coming back.
Yeah.
Because then my experience is, I lived also in Spain before, and then I went back to Mexico, and I had my own business, so I didn't have the issue of finding a job.
Yeah.
But the feeling for me was like, you are supposed to have a hole in this community or a space, and you no longer fit. It's like those games with the kids that you find the shape and you put it in, and it's like
you're suddenly a square and not round.
I don't fit in my hole, so everybody's expecting me to fit in this part, and I don't fit anymore. It's super weird.
I hear you. Yeah, and I think that process, that resistance, that it was a bit of a crisis for me, because I had really good results from my previous work. I couldn't understand why I got rejections.
Yeah.
But today I look at it slightly differently. I'm again making sense of it, seeing that, I'm grateful for those rejections today, because it really forced me to dive into this new field, professional field, and sort of took, sometimes people think that these transitions and reinventing, and it's like something we do overnight, but this has taken years. And I had years of my surroundings sort of questioning what I was doing, and because in a way I was like reframing my whole life, going from business and diving into a completely new field and setting up my own business and trying to tap into a market that didn't quite exist at the time. The well-being of internationals, it was not a focus area for companies and organizations. It is now, but the mental health of internationals and globally mobile
nobody
people.
Thought about it
nobody
before.
Really, and nobody wanted to talk about it, because it's like, no, don't, let's not talk about that. It's also next to being great and wonderful, can be tough. So I think I use my own experience of transitions and reinventing and redeveloping and looking outside of the frame and trying to sort of find a new perspective on things, also with my work with clients and teams and organizations, to sort of trying to sort of broaden perspectives and reframing and not sort of getting too locked on what's the problem, but trying to explore it from many angles. And obviously when it's with couples, there are so many emotions involved, but we are emotionally driven people. So we then work with that and understand their meaning and all of that.
But also I think it's super helpful that you do understand it, and as a client you can tell. Because there is a little part, I guess, and I don't know if it's for everybody, but it was for me, like, this should not be happening to me. Why is this happening to me? Because I'm happy and it's a good place and whatever, I'm privileged, I don't have problems, so am I going crazy? And it's not that you're going crazy. When someone can mirror that and say, I understand it, and it comes from here, and let's explore it or whatever, then it is very helpful. Because otherwise you have your own judgment, or others and fear of others' judgment, I guess. So then it's easier to see, okay, I'm not going crazy, so then I can stop and look at it from another perspective. That's a different thing than the thinking I have to put it down or get rid of this feeling, or why am I not liking it? But I'm guessing if you don't find help, it can be the source, like staying put in your own ideas and not looking at things from a different perspective. It can be the source for relationships breaking and people not being able to stay for long periods or move or
It's really interesting that you mentioned that, because a lot of my drive and the purpose comes from there. From feeling not understood in what we were going through when we moved back and forth. We sought out also help, but it was like I couldn't get the sense that the people that, psychologists or therapists that we met could understand. And I also see this is where, the people I work with, they can sense that I know what we're talking about. I haven't just read about it in a book. I've also done that, but after. And I think that is quite significant in this little niche, and then that that there is a taboo around that internationals and people that move globally are resilient and high performers, and they are.
Yeah.
I mean, from low skill workers to high skill workers, you know, uprooting is just like, if you haven't tried, you just, you know,
you don't know
you're
what
just
it is
a massive
you
hero to do that.
Yeah.
Whether you do it to build a better life, for adventure, opportunity, career steps. You know, I have deep respect for people who do that, because it's like, it's just insane. It's such a leap into the unknown. And then you
and the loss of everything you left, and whoever you were in that other place, and
it's amazing, because it opens, like you said in the introduction. I could not have written that better. That's why I got really moved, because it really is. It's an opportunity to explore more about who you are, and obviously explore where you go, and you know, but to really in a way, you know, we have this bumper sticker saying, you stretch, you grow. But it's true that there is something about people who've done these journeys and met some resistance or had some crisis and had to sort of dive into what's going on here. Why can't I find work, or why can't I find settlement or belonging? That there's an internal journey there to take. And sometimes we need, and this is where I come in, we need a little guidance and a little help to make sense of it all. And that's you also know this, but I also, apart from the therapeutic tools, emotionally focused therapy, I also lean into a framework called Hero's Journey. That's a storytelling framework that is very strong and kind of in sort of framing and making sense of what's happening in our lives. The separation phase, where the hero goes on an adventure, and then.
But I guess it's really useful, because now we consume so much content on like before you were able to see a movie or that will connect with you or whatever. It may take months, and now we are consuming this content all the time, and of course we are used to understanding this hero's journey, because we see it over and over outside.
It's in all big stories and books, right?
Yeah.
But I think actually it's interesting when you say that. Maybe what's also happening is that the stories, what we see, what we consume of content, is so
it's only the
fragmented.
Surface.
It's not the full circle, right? And it gives us the wrong impression of what life is. We think it's just that nice path, but it's full circle. We go through all kinds of things, and then we land, and we integrate the experience, and then we know ourselves better, and then we take another round in the circle of trying to sort of experience a little bit of resistance, a crisis, or adventure.
No, and the achievement is never the huge one. If you follow someone that has a similar story as you, or you see a movie or whatever, it seems like whatever we all put in the social media or in the movies, it's the ultimate achievement, whatever.
Often,
and that's not life. Not real life. No. Real life goes in this process over and over in small amounts, no? And we keep changing the way we see it. When we are older, as you said, I'm not the same when I was at third. I am, because I'm the same person, but I know different things and I've experienced different things. Therefore, you see life in a different way. And I guess the happy thing is that you actually let yourself see the life in a different way. Because being stuck in the way you were learned 30 years ago is not going to help.
Exactly, and it's often where suffering begins, right? It's that when there's this attempt to hold on to beliefs or identities or convictions of how life should be, and all of that's where and it's not like that. Then there's suffering. This ability to sort of let go and trust that there's kind of a process, without getting too spiritual, but that it doesn't mean not to do anything and not to be in charge of what you do and make your choices, but to also, and this again taps into your to your title, right, for these podcasts, this reframe, but to sort of be a lot of internationals, and especially also accompanying partners and kids. The kids a bit different, but for the partners, like you also mentioned, this friction and this phase where you want to belong and try to sort of adapt, and then sometimes we over adapt, losing parts of who we are that we would want to, parts of our authenticity, and having sort of fixed idea about what life should look like, and then it's not quite like that, and then that disappointment or that hurt can really get people into depression, anxiety, tough emotional states, because and it's not just saying, oh, but just let go, or I totally recognize, like I said, I had lots of rejection. It was not fun.
No.
So it's not that I don't recognize that it can be really, really tough. I also do see with the work with clients that once they begin to allow different perspectives and different opportunities, and let go a bit of their fixed idea of who they are, their identity, life becomes easier.
Yeah. But I guess with accompanying partners, it can be, and this is only me thinking from the other side, I made a decision to come. And it is hard, but at the same time, there was this drive of, I have to make it work, kind of because I chose this. But as an accompanying partner, probably, there's a little bit of, this is the dream of someone else.
Sometimes.
So that can be harder, because it feels like, and who's looking at me, and where's my own dream? And maybe you thought it was fun, but then you arrive and it's not what you expected. Different countries are different ways of receiving you, and you can adapt or not, and if you can work or not.
Absolutely.
All those kind of things.
Exactly. And and obviously that can create resentment and relationship struggles and a sense of a lot of responsibility on the partner that is the initiating partner, I call it. And even also in relationships where, in your case, where you choose this, there's still also some responsibility on the home-based partner that dragged you here, so to speak, right? But so it's never just one-sided. It's relational, and then it's like, how is it that we then talk about it? What's the conversation about this? Are we blaming each other, or are we victimizing ourselves, or are we thinking that I do all of this for you, partner, and I'm now just an accompanying spouse? How? So it's super complex. It's
and I'm guessing everyone is in a different position on this hero's journey. Maybe the person that got a super interesting job in another country, they are in the part of, I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and the other one is having to, okay, I don't know who I am, and I'm questioning everything. And so how do you connect those two stories in a different part of the movie? At the same time,
and that is actually important, to be able to empathize and mentalize how it is for the other person, to say, okay, might look as if this person's having all the fun, the work, the colleagues, and the responsibility in being the breadwinner, and that maybe the residence permits are on the person employed, and it's never just one-sided, right? It's relational, and it's and it is a lot. It is a lot, and I think it's also I'm still hoping that more companies will take this even more to heart, and really also understand the how the broader effects of just attracting an employee from somewhere that, you know, it's not just an employee, it's it's often
a
a whole
whole
family.
family.
And if it's not a whole family, it's an individual who's now on their own, trying to rebuild life. So it does, from my perspective, the duty of care from companies should be a bit
wider,
extended, wider. Yeah.
How do you see it? I was not planning to ask about it, but now that you open it, how do you see the companies? Because there's a lot of we need more employees in Denmark, and we need to attract talent, and then where are they when people arrive? And I see two things from. Of course, we move in the same circle and internationals, but I see either the family doesn't adapt, or it's hard for them, or they cannot find a job or whatever. And then you have also the issue of, okay, you attracted this talent, they uprooted, they move here with a family, and then suddenly the company changes what they want, and then they let them go, and it's so hard to then repatriate. So how do you see that? Are they thinking about it? Is it really a conversation they are having?
It's super interesting. It's interesting. We actually experienced that. We got attracted to another country as a family when we relocated back in 2009, and experienced getting laid off as a sort of, and it feels like it's the family that gets made redundant, right? Because, and then it was a year into our posting, and then we decided to stay and try and build something, and then I also got a job, and so it worked out, but it was really, really overwhelming. And I do see, and I also get from people that I work with, and also through the workshops, people that are, you know, emailing me afterwards saying, you know, companies should be more aware of this. And recently I did a talk for a Danish organization called Danes Worldwide, and a participant emailed me afterwards saying, you know, I was out for a big corporate Danish company 17 years, and abruptly structure changes, and we had to sort of, with no warning, relocate back to Denmark. It's the toughest thing I've ever experienced. We're still, you know, it's years back, we're still kind of emotionally recovering from that process. I wish companies did a bit more of that preparation, that emotional understanding. But the thing is that there's a bit more focus on when we send people out, or attract, so in the beginning, but then when people are laid off from structural changes, or, you know, which has been massive the last couple of years in Denmark, there might be some outplacement processes, but they're often very focused on getting the next job, and not so much maybe on the emotional and sort of that special circumstance of being an international, and that your kid's schooling and your residence permit and all of that. Denmark is a small country. I don't see that there's a specialized service for that. We're covering it a little bit, but definitely that could be better. But it's
not yet there.
That's not my impression. Some of the bigger companies obviously will have it in-house, with also an understanding of the intercultural aspects and that. But you know, Denmark consists of mainly small and medium-sized companies, and they don't have the power, the competencies, or the know-how, right?
So maybe it's more like a little thing that when they give you your guide to how to adapt when you move. Okay, start thinking about if you are. You have to prepare for when that happens. Personally.
And we often don't, right? We go on the adventure. And then this is like getting fired when you're abroad, for instance. Every time we get fired, often it's what Joseph Campbell, this hero's journey, would call a kick out of normal. So you kind of get that kick in the butt, so to speak, that you didn't choose. But there's also a lot of learning in that. There's also a lot of, you know, how do we then frame that, and can we again use your same can we reframe what this is? Is this a catastrophe or is it an opportunity? There will be grief, there will be anger, there will be relief maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe this was. So again, it's also about how do we then frame it. Not to mitigate the pain of these conditions at all.
I think it is considered like with moving, like when you have to move, when someone dies, when you lose your job. It's like the big things, right?
There is different service of this. What are the big stressors in life? And it's
one of them.
Someone close dying, relocating, getting fired. Those are the top three.
Yeah, and when you get fired and you are international, it's relocating and
it is. So it's like double stress.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, but it in the end is our own responsibility how we see things happening and how do we reframe it.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I think also, of course, there is a structural aspect of it. Will companies recognize that it will be necessary to do a little bit extra for international employees, both in terms of when they are attracted, how they get a sense of belonging, but also obviously when you sometimes have to let someone go, that you take into consideration, okay, this isn't just another regular firing. Sometimes people have 3 or 6 months only to land a new job. Or they will have to move, right?
Yeah.
So
it's a different situation completely for sure.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I guess to start closing. So this is not so long.
We could go on forever.
We can go. We can do another one.
Yeah.
But what would be like your recommendations for people when and talking? I want to go back to this reframing things in life while being in a partnership.
Yeah,
because it really looks or it feels completely different. What to think about or how to see it or communication. What is most important when you are facing any kind of challenge? If you want to see it from the side of I'm part of something bigger rather than only in our own heads, it's me and I have to solve this issue.
So the question sort of is, what would I advise? That's a really good question, right? I normally say to my clients, I don't give advice. I facilitate a process.
No, but it's, or what to look at, or what to think.
I know what you mean, but I think there can be a bit of a relief in looking at problems or sort of changes as an opportunity to explore new perspectives.
Yes.
Saying that, obviously recognizing that sometimes these kind of problems and changes are really overwhelming. I think in general, we're suffering from like an epidemic of disconnect and overwhelm and burnout. So I think maybe my advice would be to sort of nurture a bit your own nervous system first. Explore what can you do to. It's the old cliche of putting on the oxygen mask before
first.
So to actually also honor that these challenges can be quite tough, and a bit of self-compassion into that equation before we go like, need to solve this, I need to figure this out, or blame other people, and to sort of
regroup.
Which is not easy because it requires that we slow down. And when we are overwhelmed and scared and we've lost our job, or when we moved and we speed up, but a lot can be helped by slowing down. And that's actually a lot of the work that we do is like, okay, let's slow down and then beginning to make sense of things, that everything, everything's okay and everything carries some meaning, and we can make sense of it. Sometimes we just need to explore a bit longer.
Okay, it makes sense. I'm thinking I did get the tip of, at some point when I was super overwhelmed, having moved and everything, I got a tip of getting a list of things, like real list.
Yeah. But it doesn't matter.
Getting a list of things that I could achieve.
Yeah.
And then if I tick one, that was good. If I tick three, that was fantastic. Yeah. And actually doing that exercise is when I decided, okay, I put Danish classes for later.
Yeah, I can remember you said that.
And it helped me relax, because I was trying to figure out a new business, but a new partnership, but a residence permit, but also Danish, but it was too much.
Exactly.
And then give yourself the grace of saying, okay, I will do it later. Whenever. I don't know.
I think that's a good tip, because we tend to, and me included, we're all part of the same club in that sense. I think a lot of us, that we expect a lot from ourselves. Yeah. And in this kind of world where everything is so fast moving and content and all of that, it's just like I said, it's like an epidemic of being overwhelmed. The burnout ratio is just like skyrocketing. Yeah. So a lot of that, I think, is to honor that and to slow down a bit. And then I think what I also see a lot of people benefit from is to and again, reframing, practice these little gratitude exercises where you every day write 3 things that you're grateful for. And it's not to just go all positive psychology and all of that, but to really spend time noticing what am I happy for today? What am I grateful for? Okay, if we can't find it, okay, the sun is shining today, or at least it's not raining, or I'm grateful that. And to practice that, we kind of reframe our mindset a bit, and we push it towards
retrain it in a little way.
Because we have this tendency as human beings, just from nature, to sort of lean towards negativity, to lean towards scanning for danger and all of that. Yeah. And obviously, if you get stuck in that kind of mindset, it gets difficult to see that there are opportunities, and that that you're in control, and that you have choices. Yeah.
Makes sense.
So I don't know if that is an advice as such, but
no, but a recommendation.
A recommendation, exactly.
The more we can do, it's just about this.
And then go to therapy now.
Yes, yes, I'm a big fan of therapy, because not everybody is. I really think having someone to bounce back your ideas that has no, it's not in the middle of the thing. It really helps.
I think, I don't know who said this, but I've read somewhere or heard somewhere that, it's hard to see the spot we're standing on. Of course. So, what therapy can do and counseling can do is help you see that spot a bit from the outside, and to get a different perspective on your situation and your relationships and the options you've got. And because it's difficult. Also, for as a therapist, you also get counseling, and you get supervision, and you need to evaluate how you work. And so I think we all need that kind of interaction and support to sort of be able to see things from different angles.
And from someone that is not invested in the issue, I guess. Also, of course.
True.
Friends, and they will have an opinion.
Exactly. Exactly.
Everybody has an opinion. Yeah. Makes sense. Thank you, Nanna, for today.
Thank you for inviting me. It was such a good conversation.
Yes, and let's hope maybe we do some more of this, and keep reframing. And I love that you said that reframe that we use, term that we use in photography is also a term in psychology. So that made sense.
Yeah, and in a lot of other fields as well, right? That problem solving and all of that it's to be able to reframe is a good thing.
Let's keep reframing.
Yeah, we keep reframing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.